We apologize. We had some technical difficulties. And with that, we hope everybody's day is going well. And I've asked Supervisor David Gomez to lead us in the pledge.
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Gomez. We'll now go to call to the public. Is there anyone that'd like to address the board in call to the public? Sheriff?
Hello. Thank you. Tim Sumner, Greenlee County Sheriff. There's actually a couple agenda items I was going to request to speak on, but I'm going to have to leave early and I won't be here for the duration of the meeting. So I wanted to talk on those real quick at the moment. The number 6 agenda item for Mata's Bluff. I just want to let you know that I'd be definitely in support of that. And on top of it, we also have some in-kind donation with an escort we'll be providing to assist, and also that helicopter will be parked at the sheriff's office, I think, as you heard during the presentation. So there's some in-kind there as well, just so you're aware of it. Also, the number 5 I skipped over was the, I don't know if you've been in that library. I have. We've had some presentations and things in there, and it's definitely struggling. I think that'd be a good endeavor for us or the town or someone to help them out with. The last one I had was number 8C. This one's on for the clerk of the board. I looked at the agenda request form, and I see the boxes are checked no for a couple items, saying if it needs to go to the newspaper or if it needs to be reviewed by the county attorney, but it's not checked yes or no for the financial impact. And so I've got a couple concerns and questions about this one. To me, honestly, it just seemed kind of strange that the people listed here would all be getting appointed as a deputy at this point. I do want to go back to a board meeting just pretty recently on August the 21st, agenda item number 6 on that. It's 1 hour and 23 minutes in if you want to listen to it. But I know Mr. Rapier actually told the board during a discussion when I brought up an issue, he reminded you that he's already a clerk of the deputy clerk. So I know it's already, he stated he already is there. I'm not sure, again, what the purpose of this is at this point. I don't know if it's something that all electeds need to be aware of and make sure that all of our staff are getting caught up on this. If that's the case, I wish that maybe we would all be aware of this and see if there's some sort of new, statutory thing or some sort of requirement that we all need to be following. Probably. I did ask a couple of their elected officials that weren't sure as well. The other thing that I had about this, what's the time, sir? Oh, okay. The other concern that I had was the clerk of the board is appointing deputy clerks to work for her, and those deputies would be subordinate. And it just kind of makes, like we have a structure within the sheriff's office, right? It goes down, spreads out, and it keeps saying who's in charge of what. And I just didn't know the structure, how that worked in the board's office. I was actually going to request it at some point to see what that structure is. I had a couple conversations recently that some of the staff and department head didn't know what that structure was either and who they answer to. I just think that's important to know the chain of command. And I don't think there's anything wrong going on here. I just think that I would request that this be pulled out. I think it should be pulled out, just like other electeds have been, just like when the treasurer brought forth an item that had no financial impact. It was simply changing a title in her office and talking about those things. You made it go before the board and be an agenda item. I think this one's most appropriate to be out of consent and be just with a normal agenda item, just so everyone understands and other electeds understand what the purpose of this is. And really answer the question directly, is there going to be some sort of financial impact? Maybe not now midstream, but at the next fiscal year to say, they've taken on extra responsibilities and we need, raises and things like that. Because I know that's always been a concern. So that's all I have. I just wanted to see if it would be addressed in a normal agenda item. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman, at the board's direction, I can address that when we get to that agenda item if you would.
Please. Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we will now go to agenda item 2, Public Health Service District. The Board of Supervisors will convene as the Board of Directors of Greenlee County Public Health Service District and will reconvene as the Board of Supervisors public consideration of these items. A, consent agenda.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We are now convened as the Board of Supervisors and we'll go to agenda item 3, flood control district. The Board of Supervisors will convene as the Board of Directors of the Greeley County Flood Control District. And after order of business, we'll reconvene as the Board of Supervisors. A, consent agenda.
So move to approve the consent agenda as posted. I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We are now convened as the Board of Supervisors. And as such, we will go to agenda item 4, Mr. Repair, County Administrator.
Thank you. We've been watching revenue as we typically do. Throughout, we get monthly reports, usually around the 10th to the 12th of each month for the preceding month on our shared sales tax revenue as well as our half-cent sales tax revenue. We chart this, the original.
Can you make that bigger a little bit, please?
We thought would make you test your eyes.
Thank you.
How's
I
that?
fail.
I failed too.
Let's try one more. Is
That's better.
that better?
That's much better.
All right. So in the process of tracking that, we keep a chart that goes back more than 20 years. So we can track revenue over time. And we keep it on a monthly basis and we do comparisons. These columns out to the far right are the comparisons that I have built in so I can get a bit of a historical look. What happened in 1998 has little bearing on what's happening now, other than we see trend lines. But what has happened over the last 2 to 3 years does give us a very real-time perspective of where we're at. This is the money we get from the state as part of our shared sales tax. You'll know that the biggest component, the biggest driver from Greenlee County is the severance tax that goes into the formula. We all know that does not all come back 100% to Greenlee County, and in fact, we get a fairly small percentage by comparison. We're not the only county who is aware of that. Every mining county in the state wishes that it would come back more dollar for dollar. But nevertheless, that's where we're at. You can see that both over here on this column is comparison of the 3-year average for this month, for the month of July, compared to the revenues in July of the current year. So this is July of 2023, $554,680. And the 3-year average is 689, getting close to 690,000. So we're down not quite 20% over the 3-year average. You'll see that for 2 years in that 3-year average, we had huge numbers. The 794, 781, and then last year 774, 496. And so year over year, we're down 28% plus over our July revenue. Now we did some planning for that because we have known for some time that the fundamentals in the economy are going to dictate a slowing. There's several clues. One was the enormous amount of money that was dumped into the economy on COVID relief. While it shored up the economy there, that money eventually evaporates and the economy will adjust itself to that now withdrawal of that extra cash in the economy. What happens when you dump a lot of extra cash in the economy is inflation invariably happens. And indeed, it had happened a great deal. And so for almost every month, not quite every month, but almost every month for the last 2 years, we've seen interest rate hikes at the Fed. That signals they need to slow the economy down. The magic, if you will, is to try and slow it down where we don't go into recession, but we do slow the economy down. Their goal is 2% inflation, which is a historical number that's safe to peg to. Having said that, there's increasing concern that this will drive us into a recession. How widespread, how deep, and how long, nobody knows. I think most people are from a year ago are saying this recession will probably be less deep, less widespread, and not as long as had been previously worried. As we've talked before, our biggest concern is not Arizona's economy, but rather the global economy and the demand for copper. The fundamentals of copper production haven't changed. There have not been any new producers come online. And so in that regard, that fundamental is good. However, if people in America don't buy cell phones or new cars, there's less demand for copper. If people in China and Russia and Brazil do the same, there's less demand for copper because those are some of the big consumer areas where copper goes. Home building, for example. And so we watch that global economy, and there is signs that the global economy is slowing. The conflict in the Middle East is having its effect on our stock market. It's having effect in Japan. It's having effect on the European stock markets. It's simply that instability. Then you throw in the instability in our own House of Representatives. There's a very jittery market out there right now. So you can see in August, the numbers were not quite as dramatic as they were. Our year over year dropped again dramatically in September. And so the trend line is there. That red number, 813,000, you'll recall that was the adjustment for the taxing of electricity. That's when it hit. And so that was not just an $813,000 miss. That was actually closer to 1.3 or $4 million miss, because we're usually a black number there in the $400,000 to $500,000 range. So that's our state shared sales tax revenue. As we look at this, as we project that out, and this is the same type of analysis we saw at the County Supervisors Association conference, where they're projecting, they're basically saying, if revenue loss stays where it's at, in other words, if we continue at the same trend, then our projected gross annual, and that's basically just taking this number, 1.6, and multiplying it by 4, and you get this $6.447 million. That's how much we expect to receive if all things remain the same. Now, there's not two numbers on this entire chart that are the same, but that trend line, if it holds, will be about there, which leaves us only $67,850 behind our projection. As you'll recall, we took a more conservative, we actually dropped our projection year over year from last year to the current by about $500,000. And so our budgeted figure was 6.515. And we expect, if things continue, to come in at 6.4. The same is true, the same trends hold true, and we'll blow this up too. In our, oh, one too big. In our half-cent sales tax. Again, this is the amount we received in July of the current year. This was our historic average. It's way off from there. And then, excuse me, this is last year. And then the historic average over 3 years is 1.75. So we're way below on both figures on our half-cent sales. And those numbers haven't really recovered very well. You can see the trend line is down. Because we were trying to sort out the impact of the effect of not taxing electricity in the manufacture of copper, we actually thought this revenue stream would hold up better than the other. Having said that, we still projected low, but we were up $500,000. If this trend continues at the present rate of slowing, then we would expect to receive 1.4 million. Our budgeted figure was 1.5, and would leave us at a deficit of 53,000 and change. Together that puts us at roughly $120,000 is all. That's not dramatic. We could weather that. The concern I have is the downward trend and where our economy is going and where state revenues are going. You recall that in last year's budget session, there was a $2.5 billion surplus. And in order to get enough votes to pass the budget, the final solution was every member of the House and Senate was essentially allotted $20 million to spend as they wish. Some gave a tax rebate, some used it on projects in their districts. There were lots of different, some help fund some charitable things, but essentially it was everybody, here's your giveaway. Well, here we are not even a year later, and we're already projecting a $400 million deficit. As Senator Bennett reminded us at the CSA conference, in a $17 billion budget, 400 million is not dramatic. The concern, of course, is that 400 million only stays at 400 million if revenue does not drop anymore. One of the biggest factors in the drop at the state level is state personal income tax. And you recall that a couple of years ago, the legislature put in a framework where that if certain benchmarks were raised, then we would go to a flat tax. That has happened. And so the statewide income tax rate is 2.5%. That impacted higher wage earners a lot more than lower wage earners, because a lot of the lower wage earners were already in that bracket. But nevertheless, the single biggest contributing factor to the lower revenue at the state level is personal income tax. And that, to change that formula, would take a 2/3 vote in both the House and Senate and the governor to sign it. And I don't think anybody sees that happening. But more important for our own analysis is that represents a decline in our, we don't have any income tax coming to our revenue stream, but it's indicative of an overall economy that does affect our sales tax stream on both the half cent and the state share. What I've done here is given overall revenue analysis through our first quarter, analyzing not every single general fund revenue source, but those, let me pull that up again. It analyzes those major revenue sources that account for, well, 14 out of $17 million of our revenue. And so again, and they're ranked in terms of their contribution level. The state shared sales tax, of course, is our biggest contributor. Pardon me. Property tax, and I got this from our treasurer. I was very impressed. She had this number for me in minutes. But essentially, our collection rate is the highest in the state, as far as I understand. We collect at 99%, and that's the upside to having a county with a single huge primary taxpayer. They pay on time and they pay in full. So that revenue stream, which is our second largest, won't likely suffer much. We may get some individuals who may not be able to pay their property tax. There always are some, but our overall revenue stream is not going to be hurt by that by very much. And then, of course, our half cent sales tax. The only other one that the payment in lieu of taxes is set by the federal government. We get that figure before we set our budget, and that comes in within dollars of the amount we're given every year. It usually comes late in the fiscal year, but it comes. The lottery funds, and I say this as state appropriation. At one point, we used to receive a share of lottery funds. We don't anymore. We now receive a state appropriation. That has various advantages, but the key for us today is that $550,000, it's coming, and that's not changing. Now, could it change the next budget year if they decide things get really tight? Yes, it could. The state community college tuition subsidy will come this year for sure. This, as you recall, as we were able to successfully change the formula to a formula that was much more appropriate to Greeley and Apache counties, the state, without our asking, threw in a subsidy for both us and Apache County. Ours was $383,000. First year that covered our entire out-of-county tuition bill. Last year it covered most of our bill. We had to pay some on top of that, but not much. But that, likewise, that's one of those things that when budgets get tight, that's where legislatures go to look for additional funding. The other one, auto lieu, in the current year, this usually holds very steady to the predictions we receive from ADOR. What changes in a recessionary time is that people do one of two things. One, they refrain from buying a car at all, or two, they buy used as opposed to new. For us, a lot of our contributors are those that get registered and used in the mine. They're certainly not the only people that are buying cars, of course, but as those vehicle license taxes, and of course, every year a car gets older, the amount you pay on your license tag goes down. And so if you're not replacing a car or you're not replacing it with a new car, those revenues can sag. Fortunately, it's not the largest contributor to our revenue stream, but we may well see if the recession or the economic slowdown continues, we may see that figure drop. The EOR offset, that will come in at 100%. That's already in the budget. And I don't expect that changing anytime soon. I think that will continue to come. Now, let me see if I can figure out how to move this over. Let's go to this one. So we are not infrequently asked about this $4 million. That's been in our budget for more than 2 decades, closer to 25, almost 30 years. The numbers change from time to time. In the vernacular or the common language, one might call that a rainy day fund. It's not a traditional rainy day fund. In order to have that placeholder in our budget, we also have to adopt a policy that would, say when we can begin to use those funds. It is not intended to be a budget replacement. In other words, if all of a sudden all of our revenues stopped tomorrow, we could keep the doors open for about 2 months, maybe not even quite that much. It's intended to help us lean into a new budget year if revenues continue to drop. And so we keep that reserve, we don't touch it unless and until things start to get tight. And we've seen it get tight in 2008, the Great Recession. We watched very closely in the first 3 quarters of the year that COVID hit, because we knew that the economy was slowing there too. But that's why we have that. Let me get to the last thing. And the policy that we use is our review of unassigned balance policy. Like I say, it represents 22% of the overall budget. We can get 2.67 months out of it if everything, dried up immediately. Now, when it's not going to dry up immediately, it will likely slow. But there are some benchmarks that we built into this. One, if we see monthly sales, severance tax, the shared sales tax revenue dip below 400,000 in a given month, then we're going to start this now. So we haven't dipped below 400,000, but Renee, at his urging, we got ahead of this and we said, we need to look at this now, see what the trends are. If the trends hold, we're going to be okay. If the trends continue to dip and they go down, then we're going to want to look at this more closely. You'll see if the second month dips below 400,000 in a row, then we're going to start, we're going to be coming to you with recommendations for cost cutting measures. These may be leaving vacancies unfilled. This may be requiring that all out of county trips be in county vehicles as opposed to personal vehicles. That helps save some cash. So we will start looking at all of the cost cutting measures we can do and begin to make recommendations to the board if we dip below 400,000 per second month. And then, of course, if we believe that this trend is going to continue, then we would come back with a recommendation of how we would begin to use this fund, and we would siphon off a little bit to make our budget work until we can set a new budget at lower spending levels. But we adopt this every year, and it's just for this type of scenario that we're looking at. I wish I had a crystal ball. If there were only one contributing factor to this, if there were nothing but the Fed setting interest rates, I think our economy would be more predictable. Unfortunately, we have at least 2 other tremendously major factors, the Middle East and our own Congress. And those are creating tremendous instability in our markets. They're creating instability and uncertainty in consumer confidence. And when consumers don't believe that they'll be able to afford something tomorrow, they tend to not spend it today. Even retailers like Amazon and Walmart are doing sales now for Christmas, hoping to get some of those dollars before people decide not to spend them. So with that, we simply want to give you a heads up, and I'll stop sharing here. To get the lights ready, thank you. We want to obviously be on top of this. The hallmark of this board is that you've always taken a conservative approach. Doesn't matter who's sitting in my seat, and it really hasn't mattered who's sitting in your seats. This board has been a fiscally conservative board regardless. And right now, the reserves we have for various capital projects are safe. Those are not built into our day-to-day budget. And that's a very positive thing. I know there were many jurisdictions that they began to build new programs that would require financial support ongoing. We did not. And so we adhered to the rule of one-time money, one-time use. So that will give us the ability to continue with some of our projects, notwithstanding economic slowdown. If this is as bad as it gets, we're okay. If it continues to deepen or gets worse, then we will come back and revisit this, perhaps every meeting if we need to. But that's the report I wanted to give you an idea and a sense of where we're at. The last 2 to 3 years, 2 years in particular, have been wildly high. You look at the trends, our revenue beat our projections by a fair amount. In 1 year, I think we beat it by 30 or almost 50%. Those days are probably behind us, at least for the moment. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Not really a question, but a statement. I think it's a good idea for us to look at this, on a monthly basis, just to kind of get a report card of where we're at, where we're seeing those trends. But
We'll prepare and update it. It may well be that with maybe that $400,000 threshold may be too low if we see other moving
Right.
parts. We may want to take more aggressive action sooner, depending on what happens.
I appreciate the information.
I do too, and I really appreciate what's happening in the county. That's what we can manage. We can't manage what the state does, but we can manage what happens in the county. So. Good stuff. Thank you for that report. We'll now go to agenda item 5 and Derek Fair, I'll turn time over to you. I think Jackie's here, so appreciate it.
Yes, I actually would invite Ms. Hale to give a presentation about the Duncan Library. You received the packet, but I think she can flesh out the needs and even more importantly, flesh out the library's role in the southern half of the county and the community down there. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the time to share with you about the Duncan Library. At a very full weekend, I had to be grandmother to 2 at a wedding and make sure they made it down the aisle and whatever. And then last night it was raining and I'm like, oh my gosh. So anyway, sleep's been a little short, but we're good. I'm Jackie Hale. I am the president of the Duncan Library Board. I've held the position, I think, now for 8 years. I have some notes here as to what the Duncan Library provides for basically the entire county, because we do have patrons that come a lot from Clifton, a lot from Morenci, as well as Hidalgo County and Verdon and that area. So kind of to proceed with all this, I have put in a request to you which is not good timing after you just look at the budget, but to request funds. We need a new air conditioning system. And so I have put in a request for funds to do that, but also I'm here to answer questions. And so I'll just start with a little brief overview of what the library does, because you may not be aware. First of all, the library is a 501c nonprofit organization. We do stand alone. We are not owned by the town of Duncan or the county. We basically, our budget comes mostly from the State Library Association through their funds. And then we have some very substantial private donors that have helped us establish it. But overall, the entire budget for the library ranges in the ballpark of $32,000. And with that, we pay for most of our utilities. I have just put in a request to Duncan to get our electric paid. They used to pay it and then they stopped paying it. So we're hoping they come back. As well as our library staff and that kind of thing. So that kind of gives you an idea. We are not a very flush organization, but we do provide a lot. So let me just give you a little summary of the library. It was originally established in the mid-1940s, and I know there's people in the room that are much more familiar with that period of time than me.
You guys are familiar with the 40s, so I'm not.
Okay. And I guess originally it was located like downtown or in Duncan proper, got flooded, I understand at least twice, got moved elsewhere. And then in around 2000, the current building was built. The land for that was donated. And then the library received a grant to build the building. And the city did participate in that because it was a federal grant, so it had to show half from the city and half from the county. Our agreement with the city, because of the building, lasted for 20 years, although they did cut it short by a year. So in 2019, we became totally self-sufficient. And since then, that's when we've been paying all the electric, that kind of thing. So that's a little history of where the building is now. We have over probably the last 5 years, and especially during COVID, there were a lot of, I know the county received funds, but there were a great amount of funds that went out to public libraries during that time. And with that, there are kind of backtrack. If you haven't been into your public library lately, they are much, much more than books. We have a whole cooking section where you can check out mixers and fryers and food dryers. We have a whole section where children can come in and get backpacks and do photography and geocaching and all of that in the library. Tons of STEM activities. And one of the biggest things that's very exciting is we've all listened to books on tape or we've all had books, but there are now books out where a child by like a young preschooler looks at a picture book and there's actually recorded inside that picture book that's reading to them as they turn the page. They're very cool. They're also very expensive. They're like $50 a book. And we now have a whole section of those that came through COVID grants. In addition, our bathrooms were upgraded with automatic washing, all of that. There's incredible amount of programs that are now provided through the library. We have a new gazebo outside that came through funds from all of those areas. Okay, so just kind of to give you a basis, during the 22-23 fiscal year, there were 5,776 users of the Duncan Library who checked out over 8,000 different materials. The library hosted over 85 different types of programs, of which 877 people attended. Of these programs, the largest group of programs was for the 6 to 12-year-old programs. We offered 45 programs, particularly for that age group, and with over 500 children attending. This shows how extensive the library is used in our town of 700 people. So they're coming from all over the area. As I said, we have a whole computer base. We have checkouts, as I mentioned, that include books, cooking materials, cameras, all kinds of play, STEM activities for children. And then we've also offered lots of programs for the community, children's reading. We do cooking classes both for adults and for children in the library. We have a meeting area that we provide for 4-H meets there. The reunion committee meets there. And it's available to anyone. We previously applied for a grant from the United Way, and we were actually going to build a building on the back of the library to be used as a community meeting center. That did not go through. I reapplied for another grant, and I don't know, historically, the front doors of the library never would close and they would never lock. And the sheriff got to come often and check our doors because we were always not. So anyway, we replaced the whole front door system. And when we did that, we took the carpet out of one of our rooms and totally put down vinyl. So all of our cooking classes are held there. We have sinks now. We have all that kind of thing. So we offer lots and lots of different activities for everyone in the community. As I mentioned at the very beginning, our air conditioning was put in when the building was originally built in 1980. We have since found that it was not put in. Well, the air conditioning itself is put in correctly, but some of the connecting parts were not. So now we've had leaky ceilings. We have beginning of mold up on the top part. Dennis Foreman, a local person, has come in many, many times and repatched and patched. So we're up and we're running. This summer, we actually, which surprised me, made it through the summer without closing. Last summer, we literally had to close several days because none of the air conditioning was working. So that's kind of a summation of what we do and why I'm here. So I'm welcome to take any questions and hopefully can answer them to the best of my ability.
Yes, Jackie, I believe in the library. And I remember going as a little child when it was up where the American Legion is up.
Oh, that's where, okay,
In the
okay.
40s.
Yeah, yeah.
A very young child. Anyway, I just have some questions. First of all, how much are you requesting? And on your bids, I see that when on the letter that you just had, you were.
I actually received two different bids. I went with the bid that I submitted because it was the lowest, and that company already services the high school air conditionings and systems. So we figured it would be an easier maintenance issue if we had issues to come into problem. I do have another bid. That was just the one that I had chosen on originally, and it was the lower of the two bids.
So only when you request for proposal or for bid proposals, you send them out to everyone and only two replied.
Only two replied. Yes.
That's
Yeah. Yeah.
My question. And I guess the next question is how much are you?
The total bid is I think in on the air conditioner was
17,000 something.
17 change. I'm requesting, United Way has unofficially stated they will fund half. So I'm looking for the half. So I'm looking for 17. So we're talking $9,000 is what I'm looking for. I do want to that bid that I did submit with actually is almost a year old. So I do need to contact him and make sure our prices are still good. But that's where we are for the bid. But at this point, I would say less than 10 at this point is what I'm looking for.
Still, you're saying that bid is over a year old. Now, may I ask you who it is that you have a bid from?
We have a bid from
Vega is the one you.
I
have.
did not it's I didn't bring the bid part with me. It's an air conditioner. He's based out of Pima. Vega Air out of Pima is who we have it with. I also contacted what is it, BD, the main yeah, and they literally never gave us a bid. I mean, I went 4 times and I never got one submitted. And then I got one from sorry, mine. Pardon me?
Advanced Air.
Yes, and they were very high. They were like 25.
Now, another question is that, do you know if this unit is electric heating and cooling or?
Yes, it's a complete heat pump, electric heating and cooling to totally replace the entire system that's there.
That's what's there now?
That's what's there now, and he's going to replace it with comparable to what's there now.
Do you have natural gas in that building?
No, I don't believe we do.
I would suggest that you reach out to B&D and also get a bid from them. I know you say that you reached out to them numerous times. I'd be glad to make that phone call for you.
Oh, okay, that would be great.
I'm retired Southwest Gas Corporation.
Oh, okay, okay. And I think I take that back. We must have, I believe probably our hot water heater is gas.
Then you have.
We have gas because we do have a slight gas bill that we are paying. So we have to have gas. So I would offhand say that the hot water heater, I know the electric is, I know the air conditioning and the heat pump are electric. Because Mr. Foreman that worked on them is an electrician and that's how I know that part. But we do have a small gas bill, so it must be the hot water heater because we do have hot water in the library. Okay. Yeah. And I would be welcome to receive another bid. I mean, I'm just saying that after a certain point, I'm like, people.
And I understand that you're saying that.
Yeah.
Mega, services, units at the high school, but I know that B&B goes into Duncan area also, because I deal with the Catholic churches here in.
Oh, okay.
In Morenci, and they service the units.
Okay, that's great. I just had no response. And after a certain point, this is not, literally, I started working on this basically a year ago to get all of the bids and that. And it was at a point, United Way now, not that anyway, they only take grants at certain parts of the year. And so I kept missing deadlines. So I'm like, okay, we got to get something going here. So yeah, no, I have not agreed to anything with anyone at all because we don't have funds yet. And I know that once you agree, you're done, but no. So yes, I would more than welcome a bid. That would be great.
Well, maybe the exploration of a gas electric unit, because gas
Yeah.
would be much cheaper to heat with.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
Yeah.
two different bids might work from different.
Yeah, and I'm totally welcome to that. I'm not saying we need to stay all electric. Personally, I would rather go gas. But I just was trying to replace what we had as to,
Well, I don't mean to get technical, but you get 130-degree air out of natural gas than 90-degree air out of an electric.
Right.
unit. So
right.
it's a lot more efficient and.
Right.
Anyway, I'll make that phone call.
That would be great. That'd be fine. And Mr. Rapier has my contact information and he can give it to you, email, or I can come meet with you or meet you at the library or whatever. Just let me know and I'm more than welcome to do that. That would be great. I have no opposition to that. I just said it was because lack of response. And after a certain point, I'm like, moving on. Okay.
I just want to say that I fully support. I think that the libraries and the schools are the cornerstone of the community and very, very important. And really, it's been kind of brought up that this is what I do. I mean, my other life is getting these things done. And, we have advanced air that, comes up through the schools. We have BND that does it. We have Legacy down there, roads, and then obviously Vega. Sounds like you're already going to have to get another quote from Vega to validate theirs. I would suggest that maybe you can help with B&D and even Advanced Air, getting proposals from them, just so that we had something to look at.
Right.
And I think quoting it both ways, electric and gas,
Agreed.
taking a look at it. And I know this board would be very supportive of getting this done. And I know that it's timely because, you're kind of waiting on that other half.
Yeah.
So I think if we take those additional steps, then maybe we just bring back a number and look at it and
Great.
figure out how we can support.
Great. That would be very appreciative. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay. Is there anybody else? Come see our library. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty great. Anyway, and especially if you have grandkids visiting, it's a great place. So anyway, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. And you have my information that you can
I'll share it and I'll be in contact as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we'll now go to agenda item 6. Just back on agenda item 5. Yeah, probably the sooner we can get that done, the better. And David, if you'll make sure, because you're right, gas units not only more efficient, but if you have a combo, I think it will help them on their energy savings too. Absolutely. Anyway, With that, we'll go to agenda item 6, which we'll turn the time over to Mr. Repair on Otis Bluff.
Certainly, as you'll recall, it was a moving presentation by Mr. Guzzo and Bianca and I got it wrong. We thought he was associated with the American Legion. It wasn't. It's the Modest Bluff Memorial. And it is a separate organization and an ambitious organization. As he indicated, their objective is to place a helicopter, Vietnam era helicopter, up on the Modest Bluff memorial up there. I think he made it clear that this has not only economic development tones to it, but it also has it helps pay homage to a very significant veterans community that we have here in our county. A little less so now than before, but there have always been lots of our young people who leave high school and join the military, some for a career, some for a hitch or two. But for many, that is the springboard to their entire careers, but more importantly, their springboard to service in this community. And so that type of a acknowledgement and oh, no one ever tells me they can't hear me. All right, but in any event, so the request was made and it appeared that the reception by the members of the board was such that the county would like to donate. There was not a specific figure asked for, and that's part of the reason we bifurcated the request from the decision, so you would have some time to think about that. But we also have identified funds available in the Economic Development Fund that would be available for this use, and so the county certainly has some capacity to make that type of a donation.
I had a question.
Go ahead, please.
So then, veterans are incredibly important, and thank you for your service, Mr. Gomez. So, and I think we were all very supportive of getting that done, and it will create some economic development stimulus. I mean, people coming up to visit that and see that, and I think that would be great. Now, I don't have my notes from the last meeting when I was scribbling on the back of the agenda where the numbers were being thrown out. What was there wasn't a specific ask, but there was some suggestions made. Do you guys understand how much they were looking for?
No, I don't specifically know a number that he was here for, of course, for the first time. Representing that organization that had done what they've done up on top of that hill there, and with just whatever the county saw fit to assist in this endeavor, economically, that's what they were requesting.
And I know that we do have some in-kind services being provided, well, in storage location, obviously, for the helicopter as it's being transported and before it gets flown up, not actually flown, but another helicopter, I guess, is going to pick it up and take it up top. So, and some of those things are being donated. I know that some of the transportation was being donated.
I was trying to find it seems like there was a figure and the figure of 18,000 was in my mind of the cost, but I'm going to see if that's reflected here.
But I don't know that we got a good, what was the need?
Right, the impression I got, same as his, that whatever we gave would be appreciated. And I remember that
18,000 is what's in the minutes of what they estimated the cost would be, and they're getting a lot of donations. I recall the helicopter that will actually lift this thing up there won't be charged, but the fuel to run it would be. That was what I recall.
Is a $5,000 donation to this appropriate? Or, I mean, I guess we should have that conversation.
You know what? In lieu of what is happening, I feel like if we did that, and this is going to be a long process, and if things change and we can get more if needed later, maybe they can come and elicit that, but I think. I'm comfortable with the $5,000. And because that gives them some seed money
Yeah.
that they can go out and say, listen, the county gave this much money, we have this much money, we're needing this. That's just my thoughts.
And I think it's a good point that if they, one, we keep an eye on
Our own
what our
revenue.
revenue streams look like, and two, how much they might need. So if we communicate that well to say, here's this amount, and then, you know, if you're figure that you're running out or needing something down the road, then, you know, let us know, and we can address it then.
Would the board be comfortable with a solid 1/3? 6,000? That's
I'd-
one
I'd be
third
comfortable with
of their
that.
need.
I think. I think it's advantageous to them that they have a commitment and they can say. We have this much commitment, because that sort of solidifies what they're trying to do. And it gives validity.
Yeah.
To them collecting more money from others. My opinion.
Yeah, what's your thought, Dave?
Well, I'm a little biased, but you know what, I agree with what you know, has been said. This is the beginning, and really, they're not gonna realize what the expense is gonna be till it's all said and done, you know, when they finally get that helicopter up the top of that hill. But, yeah, I'm willing to agree with the 6,000 and with intentions that there's a possibility that, you know, they might come back and, as I mentioned, they haven't been here. It's amazing what they've done. I don't know if any of you have witnessed that trail up to the top of that hill and what recently happened down at the bottom right now with that silhouette that they put there, that silhouette. They've worked very hard, and they're, you know, they're nonprofit. They have fundraisers, you know, they sit over here at the Veterans Park in Clifton and sell burgers and stuff to.
So they
Make
are
some
a
money.
501(c)(3) then, okay, because I'm sure we have to be careful with what we donate to. And
It's always much cleaner if it's a registered nonprofit. Absolutely.
So, you know, as Derek mentioned, the 1/3, 6,000, and then, like I said, after it's all said and done and completed, you know, if they're needing anything else, you know, maybe they can come back
Or if they run into roadblocks during the process.
during the process. I'm okay with that.
Okay, so if there's not any further discussion, a motion will be in order.
Well.
Go ahead.
Okay.
No, you're the veteran.
Well, I so move that we, approve a donation of $6,000 to the Modest Bluff Veterans Memorial.
May I suggest that that motion also include to be paid from economic development funds?
Also be paid for the.
I'll second that.
That motion is second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I think we did a good thing there. We will now go to agenda item 7. Mr. Rapier.
I'm going to just share briefly. There are, you know, we talk about the high amount of rancor at the US Capitol. I haven't read yet today whether or not they've decided on a speaker or not. But some of those same elements are present in our own state house as well. Oh, I'm trying to get that bigger. Hang on just a second. See if that does it. That's still too small, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all right. Okay.
There you go.
That's
All right.
Better.
This is a,
People in the 40s.
I'm glad you appreciate it.
so this essentially is a snapshot. This is the latest from the JLBC Joint Legislative Budget Committee. There's a member from each, the House and Senate sits on this, but the real heavy lifting is done by economists. that are trying to project budget numbers. And they do this typically on a 3-year basis. And so in this case, they're projecting as of right now, a $401 million deficit in the current fiscal year. That means they budgeted to spend 400 million more than they expect to get in revenue. But they're projecting a $449 million budget deficit in fiscal year 25. So that would be the next fiscal year. That assumption assumes that roughly flat underlying revenue growth. So in other words, they're saying that revenue will not increase and revenue will not decrease. In other words, they've already over budgeted. But our worry, and this was spoken of often at the CSA conference, I've heard it in other circles as well, that this flat revenue is really kind of optimistic. There are a lot of things that work against that. So there are many who are predicting that even in the current fiscal year, we could be down 800 million in fiscal year 24. We'll know more, of course, month by month. The JOBC forecasting committee, I believe, meets quarterly. So we would be looking at new projections probably around the end of the year, most likely in the early January. What does that mean? It means that, and we've been through this. I mean, this board has lived through this enough times, particularly the 2008 recession, when things go south at the state, they start emptying our couch cushions to look for quarters. In the 2008 recession, we lost not only revenue streams, but there were entire blocks of expenses that were shifted to the county that we were expected to come up with some way to pay for. All of those except one have now been reverted back to the state, and that's the cost of state juvenile detention with Maricopa and Pima County. But everyone still has PTSD over the last time that we went into a recession. The other thing that is a driver, it's a philosophical driver as well as a financial driver, and that is the cost of empowerment scholarships. They underprojected enrollment 2 years in a row. But there's also a lot of flack about what some of this money is being used for. There's been some bad press on jiu-jitsu lessons and ski passes and learn how to drive luxury cars. That's where some of this money is going. So I expect there'll be some real pressure there. But with the environment that we're in, it is unlikely that those entrenched political philosophies about what money should be spent on are going to change very much. So I bring this up simply to point out that we should be cautious, in addition to watching our revenue, to be very wary of costs being shifted or monies being withheld. Things like HERF, things like the subsidy on the out-of-county tuition. Now, we've never expected that money. We can adjust, but those are things that on the cost side we'll want to be aware of going forward. If it gets worse the next couple of months, I expect that the chairman and myself will probably be spending a fair amount of time, and we may bring the rest of you along too. But talking to folks about how we can preserve the county structure financially that we have right now. So that's all I have on the state budget, and I have not sensed yet. Most legislative sessions take on kind of a theme. You'll remember last year about the was it the burrito bill? That just took on a life of its own for 3 or 4 weeks of the session, and then the great lapses for it to adjourn for a month or a month and a half at a time. This session as yet hasn't had a theme begin to emerge, but it will, and it'll may be driven by the economy. So with that, we'll of course keep our eye out for legislation. Thankful to our partners at ACO and CSA and some others who have ears on the ground down there. But we will keep an eye out for that and be ready to play defense at the legislature.
Has Entra put out their projections or anything? I know they focus on the taxes, but
They had a conference I think is going on this week or next. I have not seen their projections, but I'll go looking for that. They tend to take the most conservative and dour forecast. That's their job to look at the ways, all things that can go wrong.
Well, never fear, because the state will always balance their budget, but normally on the backs of the county, right? So
And
they
our-
will
and our friends
succeed
at the
on
cities.
balancing Their budget, but it will cost us.
Yes, and so, which again, speaks for continued conservative spending.
And Derek, you said that, there hasn't been a real big theme. I think with the current what's happening with water, with you're seeing the governor's water policy council. That is getting a lot of momentum, getting a lot of hype. Water's important. It's important for the economy. It's important for the rural areas. And I foresee a big battle with water. And I think it will come out early and it will come out often. My opinion.
And then just the politics of a presidential election will have its effect on this legislature as well.
It'll be a rough one.
Bianca, and I
You
think
ready
it's
to
gonna
go?
be the smoothest water we've ever sailed, right, Bianca?
Does anybody else have any comments, or questions?
Just, a comment really quick on the empowerment scholarship you had mentioned. I mean, that's, I think it's important to realize that, yes, there were loopholes built into that and people are taking advantage of those loopholes, but I was listening to something that the majority of the funds being spent are from children that were already in private schools before. I mean, it's not that they are choosing to leave public school to go to private school with the environment scholarships, which is what
Intent.
that was the absolute intent. But no, people that were already in private school are going to additional private schools like driving lessons or writing lessons, and it's just, anyway, they found the loophole. And it's unfortunate.
I think the latest deal, and I got this from KTAR, so you can believe it on the radio. They were good. Some they found were going to Disneyland and paying for those tickets with empowerment, using it as the cultural Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
That's culture.
Might be ready for government. All right.
Wow.
Anything else, Derek?
I don't have anything on item A, no.
Okay, we'll turn the time over to Bianca.
Thank you. Nothing much going on in October. Today our board meeting, and that's all I have the rest of October. November, a couple events on the weekend. November 4th is a Town of Clifton's 150th anniversary celebration.
Is that what the colors of copper is too? The
I
fourth,
believe it is.
the fourth?
Let me check, see if I can find the right.
Okay.
November 4th.
Colors of copper.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll get that one added. Our board meeting is on November 7th. County managers on the 10th, and then the 7th annual suicide walk with Cody starting at 9. That is on the 11th. Small counties, Eco and WIFA on the 15th. CSA Board of Directors on the 16th.
What is that equal on the 17th?
Just saw that.
It's possibly got that mixed up from a different month. We will check
Possibly,
and
yeah.
and verify.
I'm
Yeah,
quite sure
I
it's on
have
the
two on there.
15th, but that's all right.
Okay, I'll check that one. And then our second board meeting is November 21st. Thanksgiving on the 23rd, and our offices are closed both Thursday and Friday, 23rd and 24th. That's all for November. I have. December, Clifton Festival of Lights on the 2nd, Duncan's Festival of Lights on the 9th, county managers on the 8th. Our board meeting is on the 12th, and we don't have a second one unless we need to. ACO is the 12th through the 15th. And it looks like there's still a small counties on the 13th and 14th CSA.
Okay,
I talked to Penny,
okay.
and she did say that those were,
Are they gonna be in conjunction with the ACO conference?
she didn't say,
Well,
no.
I'll check on that and on the ACO conference. Is that starting to, or is that in the evening?
It starts on the 13th, but they will have they'll have the little reception on the 12th for anybody who happens to be in town. But the actual session will start on the 13th, and it looks like they're not having that Summit Awards breakfast on the 15th. It looks like it's just going to be the board of directors, but if you go online, if you can get now that they send out, the link is there to register for the conference, and it has all of the conference scheduling and also for the to look at your hotel. It's available. It is in Mesa this year at a Sheraton, and they've booked it for the next 3 years. I can't remember where the Westin's again, but it is a Sheraton, and that link is available on their site, and registration is now.
Thank you.
Hot showers included, Mr. Gomez.
And I'll check with CSA and on that in ECO. The WIPA, they won't.
Whipple won't have,
WIPA, I'll have that.
Okay.
They won't ban that,
okay.
but I will check on that.
Okay,
It
and
might
then-
be in Yuma. I think it might be in Yuma. WIPA might be in Yuma.
Let's use our plane. Oh, we'll.
Oh. Okay, does anyone
Yeah,
else
that's
have anything to?
all I have, unless you guys
Okay,
have something.
David, I don't have anything right now. Thank you, Bianca, we appreciate that. Okay, if there's nothing more on 7B, we'll go to agenda item 8, consent agenda.
Real quick question, can you explain 8C?
Yes, be glad to. There are several things that we expect everyone in the office to be able to do, such as receive legal process, fill in for Bianca, if necessary, and several other clerk's duties. As Bianca and I began to visit about this, we weren't certain who all had been appointed. I had been, but we wanted to make sure that everyone was appointed. There is no dollar associated with it. It simply allows them to do some of the ministerial tasks of the clerk. It might be a good idea to make sure that all deputies and other offices have been appointed, but normally the process of doing those, like for example, sheriff's deputies is hired as a deputy. But nevertheless, this is to simply make sure all of our bases are covered. It may be redundant in that some of us, we know Renee, for example, and Thalia and myself have already been appointed, but we want to make sure that everyone's appointed. So that was what this is about. It's simply housekeeping.
So feeling like when Laura comes and sits in for the.
Exactly. And it's not uncommon that we get served certain papers for the board, and whoever is there can accept that.
But there's no promotion.
No promotion, no money involved, not now, not later. If there's some other thing, adjustments, it'll be handled in the budget process like we typically do. But we're not anticipating any of that.
and this has been done in the past, if I remember right, we've always had a list of deputies that for the same reasons that you explained, so this is nothing new, correct?
Correct. It's been done for decades.
Okay, thank you. We are on agenda item 9, consent agenda.
Eight.
We're on
8.
eight, man,
So I so move that we approve the consent agenda as posted.
I'll second that.
a motion is second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. We are now on agenda item 9. And 9 does come after 8. Anyway, Mr. Gomez.
I just have a comment to make about employee appreciation. I'd like to thank Diane and everyone that got involved with that meal together, including thanking Gracie and Jerry for an excellent meal. And thank you to all our troops, ladies and gentlemen, that day in and day out, you know, do what they do, and thank you to all. Thank you, Diane. Appreciate it. That's all I have.
Okay.
I'll just quick go over, so about 10 days ago or 11 days ago, we attended the County Supervisors Association and Arizona County Research Foundation Board of Directors and Flagstaff. It was a long process, but very good process, as they always do. We went and verified and came together and elected or chose the legislative priorities for the CSA for this upcoming, legislative session. And there were 10 different priorities that were selected. There was a lot of discussion on a lot of those, but they have their marching orders. Anyway, it was a really good meeting, very productive, and one of my favorite ones to attend. So other than that, that's all that I have.
Okay, thank you, and I won't add to that CSA summit report, but also WIR. Probably one of the best ones that I've attended. There was more meat than Nebraska wants to join WIR. Right now, it's making, because we have Minnesota, who is associate member, now Nebraska wants to become associate member. It's for lack of a better word, forcing WIR to refocus and determine what we really are. As more and more states want to join, the importance is, what is our mission? We've always been the public lands, and most of these states that are trying to become members, they have very little public land. They have a lot of private, but some of the push are coming from the counties in those states that have public land. So WIR has been very effective in the past, and we want to continue to be effective. We want our mission and policies to continue to focus and become where we continue to be an organization that has credibility, that when we go and lobby on behalf of the western states, that we do have credibility. So there was a lot of discussion of who we are, and like I say, Nebraska would like to join. Right now, the process is you become associate member for 3 years, and then after that, you apply to become a member. Minnesota became a member last year. There wasn't a decision made on Nebraska, so that will yet unfold. But it is forcing the organization to focus, and that's all that's my report. There's 15 states, there's 15 in WIR with associate member of Minnesota. So that would make 16 if they become a member. Nebraska come would be 17. But so far, it's just been the far west. Hawaii is a WIR member, and so's Alaska. And then, you know, the Cal and Montana, New Mexico, Utah, Colorado. Texas is not, of course, they have a lot of private land, so anyway. With that, let's take a short break and then we'll go into agenda item 10. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't a running back, I did football, it was 88. Yeah, we'll come back into session and next agenda item is 10, and a motion to go into executive session would be in order.
I move that we adjourn into executive session.
And I'll second that. There being no further, are we on? There being no further business, we'll go to agenda item 11. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.